Hey guys, today we're going to be doing a review on the Indian FTR. The one you see before you now is the white one, and it is a 21 FTR, and then later on in the video we'll be catching up with a 2022 Indian FTR race carbon version. I'll be starting off with a lot of comparisons to the bobber just because one, it's right there, and two, because it's a good comparison for me just to see the difference between the two riding styles. I also want to start off with, I don't like the non-symmetry of this bike. I think it would look so much better if you had a bright, beautiful spring on each side. And maybe, engineering wise, they couldn't have done that without moving the battery somewhere else or whatever. But I just think that would have made the bike look a whole lot better since you've got all that red on one side and then it's essentially all pitch black over here. Some basic stats for you. 1200 cc's, roughly 124 or 5 horsepower, so 25 more than the bobber. The ride height is 33 inches, so 7 or 8 higher than my bobber as well. This bike's lean angle is 43 degrees, so a whole 14 degrees more than my bobber, and you can definitely tell when you're in the corners trying to make a sharp turn. And while I'd say this bike probably outperforms my bobber a little bit, nothing has ever beaten the looks of my bobber in my opinion. Sorry, but I'm not going to include the startup of this bike. It's corrupted because my Indian Scout bobber's right next to me, and so you wouldn't actually get a true impression of what this bike sounds like. But I'm going to tell you, it sounds like a lawnmower with the stock exhaust, so if you're going to buy this bike, you're definitely going to need a new exhaust system at some point. The looks on this bike are obviously great. I'm not a huge fan of this front windbreaker that he's got attached on there, but that does not come stock. The color scheme is excellent, with the white and black being the two predominant colors, and then the red accent just looks really cool. I'm also a big fan of this display screen. I'd like the minimalist style on my bobber, but having that with a bunch of information on it is very useful, and it's bright enough that you can see it even when it's a bright day out and you have reflection. Another big gripe that I have with this bike, and it's not too big of a deal because you could easily modify it, but the license plate bracket or mount, whatever you'd like to call it, is just so big and obnoxious, and it just looks cumbersome. If you could strip that down, minimalize it some way, maybe put those blinkers up on the rear fender there right underneath your butt, that would look way better. But again, not a huge breaking point, something you could easily modify and change on your own. The riding position was very different for me coming from a cruiser style motorcycle. That being said, I'm sure I could get used to it, but my feet and ankles were cramping up super bad. It may have been the boots I was wearing, but that was just my 2 cents on it. In stop and go traffic, it would heat up, obviously the engine would, and I could feel all that heat right on my calf. So if you're not wearing jeans or something to protect your calf, or you're not constantly riding with the wind cooling you off, you are going to notice that in stop and go traffic. Not a real big fan of these mirrors either. They look pretty goofy. They just don't match the rest of the bike, which is all edges and sharp curves and stuff like that, where these are just 2 circle mirrors. So if this was my bike, I'd definitely be changing that, if not straight up deleting the mirrors, but that's a matter of preference. So, and it doesn't impact the riding of it obviously at all. Overall, I was pretty impressed with this bike, and I think it's a good bike to buy, good value of money at least. Probably not a good first bike to own though, as 1200 cc's is a lot. I was really impressed with these tires, considering that they were stock. They just look great, and when I was riding, they feel really grippy as well. And you can kind of see, I'm pointing it out here, they got that extra lip a little bit to it, so never feels like you're going to lose control, even on a sharp, steep corner. Coming from my bobber, you're leaned back, whereas on this bike, like a dirt bike, you're almost shifted forward, and a lot of your weight is on your hands and arms. Next, I'll be showing you the tail end, or the last part of my first ride on that white Indian 21 FTR, which was pretty funny, as it caught my raw reaction to the bike as I got off it. So far, guys, this bike feels incredibly nimble. I feel like I can take corners on a dime and at the whim, too. So I could just instantly decide when I want to turn my corner and it would work out. There's someone. slip-ons, but that's to be expected. It does feel very torquey, just about as torquey as my bike, even though this bike technically puts out, I believe, 24 more horsepower or so. It doesn't feel like it when you ride high like a dirt bike. So I'm 5'8", and my toes are stretched a little bit just to touch the ground here. The riding position's a whole lot different than mine. Oh. Oh my God. Oh, I got a leg cramp.
We know it's a different ride, isn't it?
Yeah, oh my God. Yeah. My ankles can't take much more of that.
That's okay.
Jesus. How do you sit like on that?
I'm used to it.
Right. And as you can see here, this is the 2022 Indian FTR R or Race Carbon version. So it's got that beautiful carbon fiber, still with the black, white, and then the red accent, which looks great. So Steve, that's my buddy who let me borrow his. He didn't like his white 21 FTR, so we went and traded it in and got this brand new 2022 R Carbon version in. It's a lot of fun. I wasn't able to tell a whole lot of difference in this one in terms of performance versus his white 21 FTR, just because this R Carbon was still in its break-in period for the engine, so I didn't want to abuse it and hurt his engine at all, so I wasn't taking the bike all that fast or accelerating really quickly, anything like that, but it felt pretty much identical to the other one I rode a month earlier. That's it for this week, guys. See you next time.